Donald Trump has won the 2024 U.S. presidential election and will become the 47th president of the United States. Trump will return to the White House 4 years after leaving office, defeating Kamala Harris in a decisive victory. Additionally, the Republican Party has secured control of the Senate and is likely to retain the House of Representatives, giving the incoming president full control to implement his agenda without any opposition. Markets have reacted positively, with significant gains in the S&P 500, the Russell 2000, and Bitcoin hitting all-time highs. Naturally, this raises the following key questions. What were the main factors behind his victory? What are Trump's next steps before taking office? And most importantly, what can we expect from his presidency? Let's dive in and break it all down. Let's start with the election itself. In the weeks leading up to the vote, we all thought that the result could go in any direction. However, the results turned out to be far less competitive than expected. Kamala Harris's results were extremely disappointing, losing ground in nearly every state that Joe Biden won in 2020 except for 2. Even though polls and statistical models had predicted she would win the popular vote, she didn't even achieve that. One key reason was the Latino vote. Latino men, far from being a decisive force for Democrats, voted for Trump in greater numbers than for Harris. While Latino women still leaned Democratic, Trump also made gains with them. On the other hand, Harris struggled to mobilize women voters overall, as well as other minority groups. In fact, while she won among women, her margin of victory was narrower than Biden's in 2020. Among younger voters, it was a similar story. Although Harris won, Trump made significant improvements with both young men and women aged 18 to 29. He also made substantial gains in rural areas. In short, Trump did his homework, while Harris fell short. So now that Trump's victory is confirmed, what happens next? How does the transition to his presidency work? Well, Joe Biden will remain in office until noon on January the 20th, 2025, retaining full authority as president until then. However, as his term nears its end, his ability to implement major reforms will be practically non-existent because of the Republican-controlled Congress. A key date to note is January 6th, when Congress meets in a joint session to count and certify the Electoral College votes. Trump needs 270 electoral votes, but his wide margin ensures this won't be an issue, as even if some electors defect, the gap is large enough to absorb any surprises. Between January 6th and January 20th, a transition period begins during which Trump's team will work with Biden's administration to ensure a smooth transfer of power. Finally, on January the 20th, during a ceremony at the Capitol, Trump will take the oath of office and officially assume the presidency. With all the process laid out, let's now talk about what Trump's presidency will look like. Trump's guiding principle is no secret: America first. His approach will prioritize the United States over all else, shaping both his foreign and domestic policies. As he takes office, Trump will likely seek an immediate change in U.S. foreign relations. He has promised a less interventionist stance, arguing that the U.S. has taken too much financial and military responsibility, particularly within NATO. Trump has made it clear he aims to end the war in Ukraine by pressuring Zelensky to cede territory to Russia, essentially forcing Ukraine into a corner where negotiation or even surrender is the only option. To achieve this, the U.S. is expected to drastically reduce or cut off military aid to Ukraine. This approach will provide mixed reactions. Some will praise Trump as a peacemaker, while others will criticize him for emboldening an aggressive power like Russia, potentially encouraging similar invasions in the future. Regarding Israel, Trump has provided fewer details, but is known for his strong support of the country. What we do know is that his relationship with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is very positive, and that Trump has stated that hostilities in the region must end with Israel's total victory over Hamas, which would involve even harsher military actions in Gaza. Trump is also expected to expand and strengthen the Abraham Accords, which he initiated during his previous term. Regarding Iran, he will adopt a much tougher stance, considering his history with the country, including ordering the killing of General Soleimani and receiving threats from Tehran. Regarding China, Trump will return to his tough stance by imposing tariffs and restrictive economic measures, with the goal of protecting U.S. industries from Chinese competition and reducing the trade deficit. This approach will likely include patriotic economic rhetoric, which resonates well with many in the working class. In short, we can expect an escalation of the trade war between China and the U.S. What remains to be seen is whether Trump's announced tariff war will extend to Mexico, the U.S.'s top trading partner, and Europe. A global trade war could create intense inflationary pressure, potentially affecting the interest rate cuts Trump wants to implement. Still, despite the tariffs, Trump is likely to push policies benefiting both businesses and the middle class, such as tax cuts and deregulation, while showing little interest in reducing government spending. In other words, unless the Efficiency Commission led by Elon Musk performs miracles, the U.S. will likely continue to accumulate chronic debt, as it has been doing in recent administrations. Regarding environmental policies, Trump promises economic expansion through deregulation, especially in sectors like energy. This includes boosting domestic production of oil, gas, and coal, while rolling back environmental regulations under the promise of cheaper energy and more jobs. Although these measures might create jobs in the short term, they are very controversial due to their environmental impact and opposition from those advocating for cleaner energy sources. However, advancements in renewable energy efficiency and Trump's good relationship with Elon Musk could balance things out. However, if the U.S. ramps up oil and gas production aggressively, energy prices could drop, potentially causing tensions within OPEC. This could make Saudi Arabia slash prices to maintain its competitive edge, creating challenges for many oil-producing nations. On immigration, Trump plans to reinstate tough policies focused on border control and deporting criminals. This strategy includes restricting irregular immigration and even proposing to eliminate birthright citizenship for children of undocumented immigrants, which would be a dramatic shift in U.S. immigration law if implemented. When it comes to national security and crime, Trump is expected to take a strong approach, particularly on drug trafficking and the opioid crisis. He has promised extreme measures, such as the death penalty for drug traffickers and building facilities to house the homeless and those struggling with addiction in controlled environments. Personally, these proposals on immigration and security might remind me of the infamous border wall that Mexico was supposed to pay for, since they seem more like campaign rhetoric than actionable policies. In healthcare, Trump will pursue a less is more approach, reversing many of his predecessors' policies, including the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. Regarding education and technology, he will likely emphasize alternatives to public education, such as discounts for private and religious schools, which he argues will increase family choice. As for big tech companies, he will probably open discussions over Section 230, pushing platforms like Twitter and Facebook to take more responsibility for user-posted content. And this, in simple terms, is what we can expect from a Donald Trump presidency. Now, let's address another important topic. What will happen with his pending legal issues? Well, first, it's worth noting that Trump will make history as the first convicted criminal to be elected president. The big question is whether Trump will leverage his position to address or dismiss the federal cases against him, including charges related to his efforts to overturn the 2020 election results in Georgia and his mishandling of classified documents. Another question is what will happen with the outcome of a New York judge's ruling on 34 counts of falsifying business records tied to money payments made during the 2016 campaign to adult film actress Stormy Daniels in exchange for her silence. The former president is also defending himself in various civil lawsuits, including cases related to his role in the January 6th Capitol attack, 2 defamation cases, and a civil fraud case brought by New York's Attorney General. However, it's highly likely that with Trump in the presidency, many of these charges will be dropped. One group celebrating Trump's victory is the individuals convicted for the Capitol riot, as Trump has promised to pardon them. And that is all for today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for future updates. See you next time.